What's up? How we doing? That was, I mean, I was slightly tired, but now I've got coffee. I did maybe oversleep slightly, bit discombobulated. Was thinking that Cameron Young was Seattle's first draft pick in the 4th round, but apparently not. So let's talk about that. I told you Cameron Young would be a Seahawks type player. Big, long, strikes guys, run technique. Hi, Robbie. Brian Alvarez so pumped for Bradford. Yeah, we've got that to talk about as well. It's actually, I mean, was it slightly disappointing to see them trade out of the 3rd round? Yes. We've got John Schneider's comments to talk about regarding that process as well, because wow, that press conference from Seattle's decision makers was super illuminating to me. Kind of confirmed what you thought happened. And on reflection, I was a bit tired last night, but on reflection, now that the big data heads have spoke on it, and also I looked at I just actually realized, because to me the trade with Denver was reported as a 4th round pick next year, so I was like, that's kind of steep. The fact they got a 3rd round pick for that, plus a 108 4th round pick, so a high 4th rounder, that's nuts. Like, what is Denver doing? And that's and so let's start with the picks that I've missed, and then I'll talk about what John Schneider was saying. So yeah, Cameron Young to me was a pretty obvious Seahawks fit. I'd heard that they had interest. I know also that Stuart Court, who does the Pedestrian podcast, also British, so give and take. But he was big on him as well. He actually put me onto him early, and then I did some digging, and it just makes too much sense. He's over. He played at 320 pounds, lost weight for the combine. He is 6'3.5", basically. He's 304 pounds at the combine. He has a 1.73 seconds 10-yard split, a 28.5-inch vertical, a 9-foot broad jump, and then he has 34.5-inch long arms. More than that, like, there were some athletic types who went in day 2, like Zach Pickens, for instance, who tested really well, or there was some more glitzy, like, interior defensive line options, like Keanu Benton, right, who maybe Seattle was considering. Again, we'll talk about Schneider's comments. But, like, if you look at Cameron Young's tape, his technique playing the run, I was more impressed with than some of these more glitzy guys. Like, the way he strikes people, if I read through my notes, it's a lot of just saying good technique striking the guard, which is that initial step to then knock back someone. And so what is he in Seattle? Well, the pick apparently, obviously I watched it and wasn't like half asleep. The pick apparently was reported as a nose tackle. I mean, sometimes they read that guard in that pick in wrong, right? The position's not that important. To me, though, he's like a plug and play 3-tech / 1 technique in Seattle. He's better when he can step and then knock back into guys, what we'd call a power step, more of a 1-gap technique, then I think he would be asked to 2-gap on the interior. Would love for Pete Carroll and John Schneider to be asked that. I'll see what I can do in that respect. But so naturally, I start to get sort of overthinking. And I think, maybe that means Seattle's running more 3-4 under fronts. Maybe that means Seattle's running more bare fronts, because this guy is not really a 1.5 gapper. I don't think that's ever going to be Cameron Young's game. I think he is more of a true kind of step into guys, play your gap, attack downhill, get knocked back, and then control your gap, which is how Seattle's played all throughout the years, really, barring a few exceptions. It was just last year where they tried. If you remember at the start of the season, they tried to have two mirror stepping, 4-eye techniques, whatever, in their bear stuff. And then they had in the 2-4-5, they had the two heavy to the guard, 1.5 gapping guys in the 2-eye and 3 technique spots. But I don't think Cameron Young's that. I just think he's a solid, like that classic plug and play defensive tackle type for Seattle who can strike guys. He doesn't offer much as a pass rusher. Like his pass rusher is basically non-existent. He can improve the way he strikes people, but to do this in day 3, when you've got really solid athleticism and you're big and you're long, and he's played in the SEC at Mississippi State, you can't really get angry about that. Okay, chat. Let's see what you're saying. Sounds like their board is a lot different than other teams, Brian says. Yes, Brian, it did, didn't it? Or at least the well, we'll get into Schneider's comments. Galen says interior offensive line and defensive tackle have been taken. Everybody can chill out now. Yeah. I don't know. It'd be nice to have like more than one of each, but especially on the interior defensive line. So let's talk about the other pick. Unless any questions on Cameron Young. I'll wait for you to catch up with Cameron Young. Any questions on Cameron Young? Anything that you guys have observed? Anything I should know? Oh my word, born May the 7th. Oh, that's the golfer. Never mind. I thought we had an Aries in the building. Okay, no questions. Good morning, Stefan. Robert Cooper and Calvin Avery are the two other interior defensive line who had pre-draft visits with Seattle. Do you have any thoughts on either of them? Great question. Still learning to speak. So, Stefan, I think Cooper feels more like an undrafted free agent guy. He has such short arms. They're like 31 and something inches. Now, maybe they did a different measurement. Maybe they just wanted to check out if they were that short, because his tape's actually really promising. Like, again, he was like a technique guy for me. He popped to me. He didn't look out of place despite the short arms. And so maybe that's an undrafted free agent. Maybe he's the next pick. And then Calvin Avery, just a big nose. Like, that's what a nose tackle looks like. And he's more like a bare front nose, like a head up guy. Illinois ran a lot of bare fronts as well. Possible they were just doing digging on his teammate with a spoon with Avery, but I doubt it given the need of the position. That's probably a happy bonus that they were able to do. But Avery might get drafted. I had before, I said last night, the guys I think that I liked were Avery, Ajomo, and Cameron Young. So 1 down, 2 to go. John asks, would Cameron Young step in day 1 and be Puna? Or be equivalent to Puna? No. Very different types of players as well. But no, they need to sign Puna. They can't rely on a day 3 rookie to do stuff. He can do a bit, but don't count on him to be a starter. Redacted. I wonder why that's redacted. But Olu Oluwatimi, the center, 20202 from Alabama, the inside linebacker. Gerard Clark, the nose tackle from Coastal Carolina. Moro Ajomo, the big end, kind of 3-tech 4-eye from Texas. Or Trey Tomlinson would be neat. That is a terrifying profile picture. Anyway, yeah. Players, names. They have picks. I can see them now on the ticker. How exciting. Right, yeah. Let's talk about Bradford then. This is you going to be watching me discover about Bradford in real time, because I'm not going to lie and say that I'd heard of him. But it's kind of wild that there wasn't that much hype about him when you see how he tested, right? Like, This guy played SEC football, which that becomes a trope, but it's a high level of football for LSU. They had an up and down experience after their amazing championship winning season. But Anthony Bradford, the fact that he has an RAS, relative athletic score per math bomb, Kentley Platt on Twitter, of 9.81. So he's the 28th most athletic guard in that scoring out of 1,423 people from 1987 to 2023. Like, okay, he's 6'4", 332 pounds, 34 reps on the bench press, 30-inch vertical. Oh, yeah, by the way, he has 33.5-inch long arms, a 9'10" broad. Was that 8'10"? Yeah, 9'10" would be crazy. 8'10" broad, a 1.66 seconds 10-yard split, and then 7.64 seconds, 7.84 seconds 3-cone, and a 4.6 seconds short shuttle. That is incredible testing, and he's huge. So he's huge and can move. That's the kind of, to me, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, that's the kind of pick you make when you it's a signal maybe that Seattle might be moving away from the best player available thing and moving more towards taking flyers on the athletic guys. We spoke about that possibility last night, like how Tariq Woolen tape wise, maybe person wise he was great, but tape wise there was nothing there. I haven't watched Bradford, but Woolen, he was like a tester, wasn't he? A crazy tester. I will watch Anthony Bradford though. Now I will say, people who have watched Anthony Bradford, he actually, I don't know why I hadn't heard of him, because Dane Brugler in his the Beast, the draft guide, he had him as his 6th guard overall, just below Chandler Zavala and above Emil Ekiyor Jr. out of Alabama. So he had him as a 3rd/4th round pick. So looks right in line. I just didn't dive too much into the guard, so it's more a reflection of me than Seattle going off piste. Yeah, like nothing to hate here. Like really good, really good. And he was a 2-year starter for LSU, playing primarily at right guard. So doesn't that fit what Seattle needs? Obviously, Phil Haynes signed to like low starter money, but Haynes has struggled to be durable. Now that's harsh because really he got hurt at the start of his career in the pros, and since that point, since actually getting healthy, he's got right. So questions in the chat. Does Bradford challenge for starting time or solid backup? From Roger. I mean, that's a case of who else is going to challenge for starting time? Like, they have no other players. So, yeah. I mean, it's going to be a competition, Roger. Phil Haynes will be given the job to lose. I think that's how they approach that. But, like, no reason why Anthony Bradford can't. And he's only 22. He's an Aries. There we go. 28th of April. Big. But yeah, that no reason he can't always compete. They've got a solid, well, really good athlete, a crazy athlete. Question. Wouldn't mind taking Skinner with one of the 5th round picks, says Brian. I mean, maybe. I just don't see schematically how that really fits what Seattle's doing. But fun player. I wonder why he's sliding. Like, I didn't really watch him that much. I just watched the Senior Bowl. I know people were concerned about how skinny his lower was, but I don't know if there's something medical there. He didn't test that well, did he? So, do I like Young more than Benton? Galen, that is a I mean, I really didn't like Keanu Benton's stuff, but Benton was a different level of prospect. Like, there's a reason why he went in the 2nd round. But like relative to value, I found Benton hard work. So I guess I'm saying yes, but not really, you know. Good question, Galen. You cornered me. This is why we need Griff as a as an alternative viewpoint. I'm probably insane, but there's something in the way he moves that reminds me of late career U Party. John, that sounds awesome. I can't wait to watch Anthony Bradford. That sounds really fun. I mean, it's kind of wild that he just flew under the radar, at least for me. He wasn't at the Senior Bowl, was he? Or was he? Um, Dan Thompson. What's the ideal weight size for the big end's nose/3 tech? So, with how football's getting lighter, that's a bit complicated. But I'd say ideally, if you're running a bear, you want your 3 techs over 300 pounds. You want your nose over 330 pounds or 320 pounds. And then big ends, if we're talking bear stuff, they have to be able to play 3 tech. So inside, outside shoulder of the guard. But you want a bit more mass there, right? Did Seattle just trade down? Or am I tripping? I think I'm tripping. You want a bit more mass there for them to be able to play on the inside, but they don't need too much because bare fronts get them one-on-one. Then also they might have to kick out to defensive ends. So again, you don't want to add too much mass and lose like agility, ability to play out in a bit more space or just on the outside, and ability also to loop outside on contain pass rushes. And then also the big end, say they play the 5 tech, that's still like on the outside shoulder of a tackle, and that would happen mainly in under fronts where there's a tackle, their outside shoulder on the tackle, but then there's also a tight end and there's a outside backer over the tight end. So they're still kind of inside, and they still would have to deal with a tackle tight end combo, but it's not the same as a tackle guard combo. So what I'm saying, Dan, is that could be anywhere from 270 to like 290, but really like 285, I think is fine. 280, 270 is quite light, but this is like early down base defense, right? Um, and then in nickel, right? How often are you going to run a 3-4 base approach? You're not, but you will run a 3-3-5 bear, and that's where the big end type probably plays. Well, you'd hope they'd run a 3-3-5 bear. They didn't much last year. That's where the big end type would more play as the 3 tech. I'd love to know how Seattle does it now, because we did get quite a lot of information, Griff and I, from our research into Seattle's old system of defense, where we knew what the positions were called and stuff like that. And obviously other people did work like that as well, where they called the 5 tech, the big end they called the 5 tech. Then they had the Leo. This time round, I'm not sure. The reason I call it a big end is because it's more instructive, but also that's what Gus Bradley, Todd Wash called it in Jacksonville. Again, probably because it was more instructive and he rarely actually played 5 tech and it leads to confusion. Okay. Hope that helps, Dan. Stefan, anyone in particular you have your eye on with the 2 5th-round picks? Let's have a look. Moro Joma is someone I was talking about, Stefan. Just because he's big and long and he's kind of like a big end type. Just through the fact he's more of like a outside inside type. By the way, it's crazy that the Eagles got Kelly Ringo. Like Georgia of the Northeast. They've had a really good draft, you have to say. Okay, so who is available? And I'll post some clips of Cameron Young as striking guys as well. I should probably do that pretty soon, otherwise we'll miss out entirely. Prospects. Undrafted. Yeah, I'd be good with like 202, 202. That makes a lot of sense. Did I ever watch Jalen Redmond? John, I did. He tested so well. That's a case of it's just college scheme. Like, he's playing head up in as a zero tech and he's getting run throughs, and he should get run throughs because he's one on one and he's quicker and more athletic than the center in front of him. He's also got to worry about snapping the ball first. But how does that translate? Like, he's 290, so tough spot for him. And yeah, at this point of the draft, if he doesn't go, then we wonder, is there a medical thing? That's sort of where we're at. But like, basically, John, most of the disruption he got, he should have been getting. So it's hard to grade that. And then the disruption he got, which he should have got, doesn't necessarily translate to the NFL. At this point, we've at least taken a shot at each of our positions of need, it seems. Other than more trenches, we've got to be pure best player available now, right? Yes, incredible MJ, yeah. Back to the best player available. I mean, those guys might have been the best players available for Seattle. I wonder how many guys are actually left on their draft board. Like, was Cameron Young a guy they had lined up as an undrafted free agent? So the reason I say that is, let's talk about John Schneider's comments last night. And also, did you guys watch that press conference? Because I kind of got like, I mean, it wasn't LJ Collier drafted in the first round bad, but I kind of got bad vibes from the press conference. But I do like to read into things a bit too much. It was late. I was also having one eye on the Kraken game, which we don't need to talk about. But yeah, I just got weird vibes. Weird vibes. They looked a bit sad. And to that point, Brian Alvarez, it seemed like they were unhappy with how it was going. Yep. John seemed so annoyed, Asher and Fanan. Yep. Schneider hates this draft. They seemed unsure of their board. Agreed. I think John admitting it's the most random draft he had says a lot, says John. Yeah. So let's talk about that, as I keep saying. Yeah, so Schneider was asked about them not drafting a quarterback, and he said his usual spiel. As I said on the podcast, I believe that Anthony Richardson was their guy. Like, if he was there at 5, my understanding is they'd have taken him. But he wasn't. And as Schneider said, you don't want to do something crazy. They've said he mentioned that they might take one today, but really, Clayton Tune just got taken. I think that might have been a guy Seattle would be interested in, kind of tradesy. Anyway, but then Brady Henderson of ESPN had a great follow-up and said, because Schneider said, we're not going to panic and push just to do it, take a quarterback, that is. That's when you can make huge mistakes. And then Brady Henderson, with a great follow-up, asked him, does that same logic apply to the staying out of the interior defensive line? And Schneider said, yes, exactly. And like I said, we had some upsets today, and it happens. And then Carroll elaborated, it's not like we're not seeing it. We know we need stuff to do, etc., etc. But for Schneider, who'd previously said how random the NFL draft was today, his most random in that we've had so far in our 13, 14 drafts since we've been here. We've had guys come off our medical boards already. For him to say stuff like that and say, yeah, it's pretty, this is very random, like, and then to double down and say, there's been upsets, and then to specify that the upsets were interior defensive line. Obviously, there was a few people they had their eye on last night, which just didn't materialize for whatever reason. So the Derek Hall pick at 37, you like it, but then you read into it more, and the fact that Keanu Benton goes at 49, Seattle picked at 52, is I think you can guess. And it's a shame we don't have a full-on War Room live stream from the VMAC of what Seattle's reaction was during that point. But like Zach Charbonnet, they didn't expect to be there. Schneider said they kind of blew him off. He described when they were looking at how day 2 would go because they just didn't think he'd last, given Jahmyr Gibbs, uh, Bijan Robinson went so high in the first 7 and 12, right? And Charbonnet was their running back 3. They were surprised they were able to get him at 52. But it kind of sucks that they missed out on a 2-hit defensive lineman who I think they were hoping to go get. The other upsets I've theorized was Zach Pickens went at 64 overall, and then Byron Young, the Alabama one, went at 70, with the Seahawks then picking at 83 in the 3rd round. And then after that, they just traded out, didn't they? They could have really thought Mazzy would have been available later, says Incredible MJ. I think so. He didn't he didn't have the pass rush, and he had that off-field incident, which, I mean, a concealed weapon, like without the license, it's not egregious, is it? In a vacuum, but yeah. Scott, Matty, can you split the screen and show the draft track you're watching? Not really, Scott, because I've only got 2 screens, and I'm watching the draft on the other screen. So if I do that, I think problems. Scott, I'll work it out. I'm an up and coming streamer. It's it's a process. Bills jumping the Cowboys for Kincaid, forcing him to take Mazzy at 20 felt like it had a domino effect, says Galen. I like that thinking. Yeah, that was a weird, because Seattle took Smith and Jigba. We're all distracted by that, really. And then Mazzy going was painful. It created a massive gap between Mazzy and then when Benton went, right? It's just too many picks for that to last. But Incredible MJ says, got to stick to the process. Yeah, at least we know they've stuck to the process. Like, that was my kind of borderline Copy take yesterday. Like, they traded down because it's like a poker player. They didn't like the hand, and they just traded down, fleeced Denver, absolutely fleeced Denver, and they didn't play at the bad table. Like, they guys were going off their free agent boards. Guys were being drafted who were a medical concern for them, and they were just like, "This is crazy. Let's just get out and get a really valuable asset next year." Schneider spoke about also how it's a good draft next year, but really a 3rd round pick, that's that's nuts. Oh, Ty, thank you so much. I know that though. It's just I have 2 monitors, Ty. Like, and then on the StreamYard, the tab. Okay, I'm not really watching. What do you guys want to see? Like, I don't know what to share. I'm not watching a draft tracker. Anyway, let me know. I don't know how they expected Mazzy to last in the 2nd round when he's the best nose tackle in a really thin class. I'm glad we took JSN though. Yeah, Brian, there's a point there. I think probably lack of pass rush, maybe. Yeah, he seemed like a late 1st rounder, didn't he? And they might have known that. You don't know. It's just, yeah. They clearly haven't had the same valuations as certain teams. You want NFL draft tracker shared? Okay. Let me experiment. I'll give it a whirl. Do I think Anthony Bradford can be a starter from day 1? I don't know. I haven't watched him. But, like, athleticism-wise, why not? Started 2 years in the SEC. Yeah, John, that's exactly it. If you swear not to push players up your board and your valuation is Mazzy as a 2nd rounder, then you're going to run the risk of missing out. Exactly right. and I'm good with it. Like sticking to the process. I think once the dust has settled, the way that this draft looks, you can't help but feel positive, you know. So right, let's see how this works. Is that good for people? I know it's is that what people would like? Are you happy with this? I can do um that. Was that too small? Let me know. Or this. Popping in. Yeah. Let me know what you like or how big you want me, etc. Thank you. I'm so scared it's just gonna break. Anyway. Kind of sad seeing Jamie Robinson go. Yeah, it is. But so have any of you watched Antonio Johnson? Because he tested well, didn't he? They've gotten a lot of good players. Brian, they have. You can't doubt that. Oh, now we're calling for a different type of tracker, are we? Okay. I mean, I can work it out. Why? Wha- let me check that out. So, in terms of logic, you would think Seattle would go for an inside linebacker and another interior defensive lineman, right? What other positions do you want? Center, possibly. So obviously I didn't oversleep, but I did. So did has Luke Whiteler been taken yet? The third round was a blur once they traded out. I felt like he was physical and fluid, but saw him as a nickel specialist. Been a minute since I watched him. Yeah, John, I remember a bit of slot stuff as well. I mean, this point in the draft, Luke Whiteler is still on the board. Jacob, thank you. Interesting. Have they got it right? Because Olu Oluwatimi's still there as well, isn't he? You're getting the NFL.com tracker. That's what we're getting. Competition at center would still be nice for sure. It would. It would. I don't think Bradford has that center experience. I'm sure they'll add someone, right? Um, and the best thing about day 3 is this is where Seattle does their damage, isn't it? This is where they do their make their money. Any tight end stand out? Let me look at who hasn't been taken. But there's intriguing athletic options still, I'm sure. Thing with the tight ends was they just all of them tested well, but I just didn't see much from what like Seattle would want for them. Like they don't none of them could really block, which is rare. Payne Durham, someone they might add as a undrafted free agent if he hasn't been drafted, that is. Oh, brilliant. Okay. Undrafted. Oh, Josh Weil hasn't been drafted either. And Zach Kunst is he was a so he tested incredible, wasn't he? He was like a generational athlete, but his background was as a hurdler and he ran like he was hurdling. He ran routes like that. A very awkward looking player. So I don't hate the idea now, but like it's a real flyer. If they're doing best player available, they won't draft him until a bit later if they're gonna do it. Galen, I didn't watch Will Mallory. What did you see there? He doesn't block, so I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't watch him. Oh, New England's just doubling down on an interior offensive line. Well, sounds good that Seattle has got Anthony Bradford. Again, they got their pick of the kind of day 3 types, right? So I'd grade Cameron Young as a B, and Anthony Bradford, who I need to watch before I grade, but I'll still grade him anyway. I'll grade that as a B as well. I think you can't hate those picks. Which linebackers do I like on day 3, Matty? Stefan asks. Define like. Yeah, the linebacker class I was not that enamored with. I will admit. Compared to like last year as well. I mean, Owen Papo did some things interesting, and I liked liked is strong. Henry 202. He's interesting enough. Chat, how do you feel about the day 3 picks? As Seattle's 3rd pick is coming up on my ticker. Are we positive? Are we negative? Is it time to fire everyone? Clean house? Yeah, Stefan, you're exactly right. Like is worth taking a flyer on and see if they can be developed. That's pretty much it. Yeah. If you could guys who are watching on Twitter, if you could retweet the Seattle Overload live tweet saying that I'm live for day 3, that'd be super helpful. Thank you. Oh, and like the video, please. Brian Alvarez can't complain. £600 and counting. Yeah, Brian. It was funny how Quandre Diggs yesterday was like, "Okay, Seahawks draft. Let's come out with like £1,000 in the trenches," and they drafted one guy in the trenches who is an outside linebacker at like 250ish pounds, and that was it. So funny. No pain. Found Schneider's thoughts on linebacker interesting last night as well. Brought up Rattigan and Vi Jones, says Galen. Yeah. I mean, at this point, I don't actually think there's anyone who's better than Rattigan or Vi Jones. So, yeah. Vi Jones was interesting, wasn't he? Like, he tested pretty intriguingly. And Rattigan's solid. I mean, these aren't, don't get it twisted. Like, they're probably not going to be starting. And I doubt they have the ability to push for that. Chip, you're welcome. Thank you very much. Hopefully we'll get Griff on as well. If you at Griff and tell him to join, that doesn't hurt. I forgot that about Galen. Sounds like they do expect something out of Rattigan. Yep. Yep. Rattigan's coming off an ACL, isn't he? But like on specials, he was decent. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the inside linebacker group shakes out for Seattle because Wagner really don't want him doing much coverage stuff, but in passing down situations as a rush kind of guy, he offers something. Devin Bush is like a complete flyer. And then it's like in the passing down situations, how much do you want to just play dime? Which I think they'll try and play as much dime and sub package stuff. and maybe bare 3-3-5 where there's only one inside linebacker on the field, as possible. So a lot of kind of Jamal Adams playing in looks that you may describe as kind of like an inside linebacker. But there's a lot to unpack with the defense because is Jamal Adams healthy? Like, we don't actually know, do we? That's a tough recovery. Anyway, almost Seahawks time. Here we go. Oh, Seattle did trade. What did Seattle trade? What did they do? Chat. No one told me. I'm lost. I'm scrambling. Why did it say Pitt Seattle? What was the trade? I thought they moved down. No one's saying it though. I don't think they traded Brian. Okay, what does this Pitt Seattle thing mean? When did Seattle trade with Pittsburgh? What is this? Hey, Brian, though, you did try to put me right. You did say that. Okay, yeah. You did say the ESPN tracker was more preferable. Okay, I'm glad I didn't miss anything though. This was Akello Witherspoon. Okay, here we go. Akello Witherspoon. Thank you, Akello. That was wild, Akello Witherspoon. I really thought he'd be the guy. Like, he's so athletic, and the fact that he earned the starting job. I mean, they didn't have much else, did they, at the time? But I just thought, oh, that's interesting. And then they just were like, no. And that, so watching him on film, he was using, and Seattle coaches various press techniques to people. It's not just step kick press, but for their long guys, they like them to use a step kick. And Witherspoon was just soft shoeing, mirror step in. He was not using the technique. And I think they just fell out about the technique. Like, word from the inside as well. I think that may have been a factor. Yeah, and then they got rid of him. And then he, per the analytics, the charting companies, they had him playing well in Pittsburgh, didn't they? But now I don't know what he's doing. Anyway. Hey, chat, no spoiling the picks for Seattle, please. Feels like several lifetimes ago. It does. More coffee, Matty, says Scott in the 503. Yeah, Scott, I should probably have breakfast as well. That might help. Yeah, it did come from Witherspoon. Thank you, Joark. So, who do we want here? Who would you like to be Seahawks? Did Seattle want Sean Clifford, who Green Bay wanted to, who Green Bay took? We'll never know. Oh, and thank you guys for those who retweeted the podcast. That's very helpful. 202 or Whitebler. Yeah, Whitebler here. When in the mock sims, he ended up going like third round. People aren't going to be unhappy about that, are they? Morojomo or Skinner. Yep, interesting names. Yeah, I think Ajomo's who I'd like because he's long, he's big, he has the outside, inside, outside stuff. And I think he's relatively untapped. Like, our defense wasn't the best for letting him go and get it. He's He turns 22 in August. He, I think, can add or lose weight. Sort of, he needs to work out what type of body he wants to be for the NFL to positively accent certain traits. Um, yeah, let's see. The pick is in according to the NFL tracker. My live stream is so behind. No spoiling in the chat. We're all hanging out here. I haven't seen any of the spoiler names today. You know who you are. Have some shame. Oh, there you go. Mike Morris. Go and look at my tweet. And Griff loved Mike Morris, by the way. Well, loved is strong, but he flashed like watching Mazzy Smith. He was very interesting. That's a big end. That's a big end in Seattle. He's young. He's a guy that they can develop, and he like if you read out his measurables, he's 6'5", 275 pounds, with 33.5 inch long arms. Tick tick tick. And this is a pick again, which signifies that the five technique slash big end exists in Seattle. Like that 275 pound thing. The fact that he has a 1.64 second 10-yard split at the combine, which is very impressive. The rest of the testing not great, but he's like an outside, inside, inside, outside type, and he's a guy who can contribute in under and be a kind of dude for Seattle, like be a rotation guy, develop him. Uh, he had some real fluid elements for a bigger guy. Um, he was more outside, more kind of end like than inside, I'd say. Where we at with that? Are you happy? I need to do a tweet at some point. Apparently, the quick was turned in super quick. No spoilers. Stefan, interesting. Very interesting. So that's their guy instead of a Jomo. But yeah, if you look at my tweet last night, I said, let's find it. I said lots of day 3 interior defensive line names for the Seahawks. Names I'm intrigued by are, I said Moa Jomo, wrong. Calvin Avery, Cameron Young, but then I added Mike Morris, big end. Let me just do a tweet about him. Seattle's on the clock again. Very exciting. Yeah, he was very good. He was very good at setting the edge. Played fast. Very good footwork and good at getting low for a slightly taller 6'5", 6'6" kind of guy. So, and yeah, I agree. Incredible. Definitely has room to grow, room to get stronger. Like he is young. Let me get the age. Yeah, an Aries. Let's go. 22nd of April. But yeah, he's 22 years old. So like, there you go. Oh, there's a linebacker going just before Seattle's pick. Don't think they'd have wanted Savocia Dennis, but we don't know. Pick is in. This has to be an inside linebacker, right? Griff said he's 45 minutes out as well. Oh, there we go. How about this? They're having a draft, guys. They're having a draft. They're doing some pretty good value stuff here. Olu Oluwatimi out of Michigan as their center, doubling up on the Michigan guys. Uh, sorry if I've spoiled that for you watching on television, but the NFL tracker showed it. So yeah, but that is a very very interesting pick because again he was a guy who Griff was big on. They've actually got some size. Like, um, he's not like Whitepler, where Whitepler was like a shorter, smaller center. He is a bit older, so he turns 24 later this year. But 6'2", 309 pounds with 33-inch arms at his pro day, and a 1.79 10-yard split, a 29-inch vertical, a 9'2" broad, and a 29 reps on the bench press are pretty good numbers. Like at this stage, he started 1 year at Michigan as their center, and they did a lot of things at Michigan in terms of pass pro. Well, not a lot of things, but they asked a lot of their centers in pass pro. So he's definitely a center, but like good competition, good competition, and the depth that they needed. Very cool that Seattle was able to get their kind of center at this point. Like they could have. What were the other centers who you'd have liked to see in Seattle? No, Brian, he doesn't have 36-inch arms. They were 33 inches at his pro day. Pete and Harbour gabbing on the phone is the image I choose. Peter, yeah. Obviously, that's what happened. Obviously. They get along so well. Am I missing anyone other than Whiteblow? Henry, when will the draft recap and draft grade video drop, Matty? So we're planning, I think, to record on Wednesday. Wednesday? Sunday. Sunday, release Monday. Does that sound good? I hope it does. Imagine if they'd forced Whitepler in the third round. Again, didn't have the size, Whitepler. Although I do wonder if there's something else going on there. We'll see. Hopefully not. Center is kind of bare right now. It is, Brian. They kind of got the last ones, really. Didn't know the UK is 3 days ahead of the US. All right, Henry. Chill out. Relax. Top 30 visits would suggest safety in the 6th round. Okay, Scott. Scott, enlighten me. Who are the safeties we should be looking for? Please release as a podcast as well, says Tamash. Yeah, so the recap with the draft grades and stuff and like a review, that will definitely, the dust is settled podcast, that will definitely be a podcast. Yeah. We'll live stream it. But yeah, you can find, this is a podcast usually. Seattle Overload in your podcast app. Check it out. For those counting, we are at 1,120 pounds and counting. Nice, Brian. Look at that calculation. But you put puns. Yeah, like Mike Morris actually did stuff as a pass rusher. Which, at this point, cool. More on the edge, though. So there's a slim chance that Mike Morris is actually not a big end and that he is a big edge. The reason I say that is if you actually look at like the Tyreek Smith ad, he's more of like a 4-3 end type, and I think that's something they have in their idea that they have like a slightly bigger defensive end edge, but I'm not so sure. That's just a theory. Yeah, Morris probably in base is probably playing on the outside shoulder of the tackle, in the underfront, or playing inside as a 3 technique, and over the guard, and then in nickel he'll play over the guard, and then in pass rush situations he'll play over the guard, but obviously to get upfield. But he'd have to learn that, so you need to watch more of him because it could be a nickel that they prefer him outside. They announced it on Twitter as DN, but I don't know if that means anything, says Stefan. I think we can say the under stuff is not coming back. They did it last year, but like base like stop the run stuff is going to be under fronts and bare fronts, which Draymond Jones, by the way, you can infer he's that sort of player as well. What it means is the 5 technique exists. Although actually, I'm jumping the gun a bit there. With them being 3-4, Stefan, there's a nose tackle, right? And then the 2 guys either side of the nose tackle are called the DNs, and then there's 2 outside linebackers, the Sam and the Will, in this defense. So the 2 DNs are like the 2-3 techniques. So that's more of an inside guy, right? But the old 5 technique in the defense, or the old big end, was basically a 3-4 end if you're moving to a 3-4, or you're running 3-4 fronts, which they did in 2020, 2021. Yeah, Brian, the draft announcements are provided like that, but I think the team, like the teams are they're just submitting stuff. When does Seattle next pick? Oh my word. We've got a while, haven't we? '21 in the 6th round. No more picks from other teams. That's a shame. Who do I like for inside linebacker and safety depth? I don't even know who there is here. Scott is was it Scott in the 503 who said about top 30 visits? Yeah, so these are the names. These are the safeties. Oh, did Howden get taken? Yeah, to the Saints. Interesting. What about Jarek Reed II, Scott? I'm interested. Okay, I'm gonna real quickly. I'm gonna go get water, and it's not really breakfast, but it's food, and then I'll be back. So I'll be like 2 minutes. Let me just find a way to get rid of that. I'll leave you with the draft tracker, and you can have some music. It'll be really good for you. 1 second. I'll be back in 2 minutes, right? That's interesting about Mike Morris. Very, very interesting. John Boyle, the Seahawks writer, saying that he's up £20 from the combine and Seattle sees him as a 3-tech defensive end. Yeah. So inside. Imagine just being able to put on £20 like that. I mean, I'm sure he slimmed down for testing a bit, but 295 is heavy. Especially when some of his stuff really was best outside. Yeah, I think the defensive end stuff is more it's a 3-4, right? So hence the defensive end plays 3-tech. Interesting though, the reporting, it's a 3-tech, not a 4-tech. Now why that matters is, remember last year, start of the year, even in the bare fronts, they're playing with what they call 2-4-techs, but it's 2-4-eyes. The mirror step-in type is the stuff they struggled with the 2-gap in and the mirror step-in. But then they moved the bare fronts more to being with a 3 technique as much as possible, which is how they ran them in 2020 and 2021. And they ended up doing better with it, but it was like, okay, well, the Fangio tree likes the 2-4-techs, but the Seahawks staff, when Pete Carroll first ran the bare fronts, was power stepping 3-techs as often as possible. The fact Morris has been told he's a 3-tech reflects that they're doing more. He expects he'll be playing 3-tech 4 in Seattle, Corbin saying. Okay, well, I'll have to listen to it then. Forget my overreaction. I'll listen to that interview. Later on, I'll do a tweet about it. But a 3-tech, so the 3 technique in the bare front bumps to a 4-eye if they have a tight end on their side. Just fits how blocking schemes work. We're cleaning up right now, says Bud. Yeah, I mean, they're not doing too bad, are they? Quandre Diggs saying, now let's bring back Alan Puna. I mean, he's not wrong, is he? He is not wrong. I mean, Morris has to bulk up because Seattle is in a 3-4. They need outside linebackers on the outside who can drop into coverage. Morris is too big to do that. Now in nickel, there's a chance that he gets chances to rush off the edge in the 2-4-5 front, but in terms of the 3-4 odd front stuff, you have to bulk up more because you're going to be playing so much inside. Like, if you bulk up more, then they can play you at 3-tech, 4-eye. They can also bump you out to 5-tech in the under stuff. I need to listen to the interview to see if he said 4-eye. John says, does Morris rule out a Jomo? Probably. But like at a certain point, who else are you going to take? Jomo's long and big-ish. You could take multiple ones. They need mass. Tajwa, the fact he's already got up to 295 is promising. Yes and no, because you don't know how bad that weight is. You don't know how good the weight is. Did he slim down to test? Probably, but he didn't look like he was 295 at Michigan, so maybe it's bad weight. We don't know. I saw someone saying that the Seahawks told him to add that weight. I don't know if I need to watch the interview, but if they did, that suggests that they'd been very in communication with him, and maybe as an undrafted free agent type. But I doubt it. Michael, who said Morris is 295 pounds? He did himself, apparently. To all the reporters who are in the conference call with him right now are saying that's what he said. So he did. Calvin Avery's still out there, by the way. If they wanted to add someone. And Gerald Clark is still undrafted. So they've got an option if they wanted to get a bigger nose type player. Stefan, if Seattle drafts another nose tackle and brings back Puna Ford, would you be satisfied with the makeup of the defensive line room? I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day, and they did have quite a lot of work to do. I don't think they've got as dynamic as they'd have wanted to when they said all of those comments in January about getting more dynamic, getting like real game wreckers, game changers up front. And it really hurts the fact that Jalen Carter is not wasn't deemed, you know, good from like the character perspective, because he was the perfect disruptor for them. Like, he's not Aaron Donald, but he has a game breaking ability, which is almost like Aaron Donald, you know. Um. So, oh Dan, thank you. Thanks for the content over the weekend, Matty. Really enjoyed looking forward to the draft recap. Thank you so much, Dan. Appreciate your support. Top lad. A lot changed with Jalen after January. Yeah, Matthew, it did. Yeah, I understand it. Just sucks. Sucks on multiple levels. Absolutely sucks. But the way I said it in my article on Seahawks on Tape was that with Jalen Carter to be a Seahawk, would have then Seattle needed a miracle, but instead they were handed something more tragic, which was unfortunately the incident which happened. And then I said I didn't think they'd draft him because they've spoke a lot about character, and he just didn't fit, you know, what was coming out of Seattle in terms of their decision makers. And so it proved, sadly. Maybe he'll be a stud for the Eagles. But as I said last night, or maybe day one, he kind of needs a change of scene, doesn't he? It seems like that Georgia kind of bubble, like that environment. And instead, he's going to like Georgia of the Northeast. So we'll see how that works out. Jordan Davis, Kelly Ringo, all the other Georgia players who I've just completely blanked on. N'Kobe Dean, that's the one. Nolan Smith. If he slips, could Ivan Pace be an option in the sixth? Out, probably. Like, he could be. He's more like a special teams kind of pick, though. His team's definitely just size dinging him, which I mean is understandable. Scott, I don't think you have to trade back into the fifth. No, I don't. I don't think the nose tackles are going to go. Could be wrong, but I doubt it. As in, I doubt that the nose tackles will go. I'm highly likely to be wrong. Remember, Griff is he's only 15 minutes out, by the way. Misfit, why couldn't you find the stream? I'm sorry about that. I did tweet it out, but I know there's a lot of tweets on draft day, and I was a bit late. Oh, he did play in the 290s. Oh, Stefan, turns out I just can't judge how big someone is on tape. There you go. And that's often what happens with these guys who are in the 290s and then slim down for testing. Rarely do they test amazing because their body's not used to it. They're just sort of that kind of in between mold, so they're never really going to do well in those sorts of activities. But on tape, there's athleticism to him. Misfit, let me just say, I think the theme of this draft is toughness. I agree. Toughness, character, personality. Those are absolutely what's going on here. Absolutely. And look at also not just who they've drafted, but who they haven't drafted, who they've passed up. They're on these tough guys. I found it interesting how Schneider described Derek Hall and Zach Charbonnet as alpha dogs yesterday. That was cool. And it's what Seattle needs to sort of supplement their draft class last year. They need even more just nasty people in terms of their mentality to competing, where they will fight for their jobs and they'll want to start. Even though they have a quarterback who, in theory, is the future for the whole of that contract, the rest of it should be wide open. How would I grade the draft so far? Asked Rowan. B. B plus. B. It hurts that they missed out on the day 2 interior defensive lineman that they wanted. It does hurt. But this best player available strategy is pretty cool. It's cool to see it play out like this. I think they're getting some interesting value today. So yeah, B plus. But we'll have a Dust is Settled podcast on Sunday where we'll be live for that, and then that should be in your feeds on the Monday if you're just going to listen. 7 quarterbacks drafted in rounds 4 or 5 today, says Stefan. Yeah. Schneider said that they'd take a quarterback if they had the opportunity, but and it felt right, but they didn't want to force it. And I imagine all of these people drafted are guys Seattle may have taken in the 7th, but not now. Anything I would have done differently if I was John? Wow. No, because I didn't like Benton like Griff did. I would never have taken him at 37. Hell no. So I don't really know what they could have done differently. Maybe when the guys started in the 3rd round, when the guys started going off like they did, that kind of Byron Young went and Pickens went. I didn't really like Pickens, but he looked athletic. Byron Young I did like. Maybe I'd have done a small trade up, but just to get a guy in the day 2 range. But they might have had Byron Young graded as a 4th round player. And I think it's like the Mazzy Smith thing, right? I think that's a situation of they probably had him as an early day 2 grade, and he goes at 20. He went to the Cowboys 26, right? They don't want to force that at 20, and they may have considered trade downing at 20. But I think it's nice that they took the best guy on their board in Smith and Jigba. They got a wide receiver for 3, like a genuine wide receiver 3, finally. And they didn't do that thing which they've done in the past where they try and trade down. They get picks, but then they're sitting at 29 or something. And all of the guys they wanted have gone. And then they have to force something into a ledge or they're just screwed. So it always reassures me when Seattle is at the head of a run, or they're Yeah, when they start a run off or they decide to trade down, um, with lots of guys on who end up going. So like day 2, when they traded down out of the 3rd round and then those inside linebackers went, I think that's cool because it's like, okay, well, Seattle had a shot at these guys. They didn't like any of them enough to draft them in the 3rd round. Cool. It's reassuring. It's much better than the alternative of them sat there going, all of the guys we wanted, basically telling you all the guys they wanted went, and we took LJ Collier, for instance. As much as yeah, LJ Collier, it's not his fault. I would have traded up for Keon White if we weren't picking in the 3rd, says John. He was interesting, wasn't he? But like, what does he? There's a projection there. Like that would have been forcing a guy into a spot he doesn't belong. Even though he's a very interesting player and I liked him. He's also turned 25 in January. So like, Morris said Olu Oluwatimi is one of the best offensive line he's gone against at the college level. That's nice of him. Good teammates. He probably is though. Like he is a solid, very solid center, especially to pick up at this point. I tweeted yesterday that Seattle's draft is like one of those try something different mocks because it's it's like they've banned themselves from taking trenches players until the 3rd round. Oh, that's misfit. That's very interesting. That is very interesting. So that's high praise indeed. So if you don't know, Duke Manyweather is his brand is called Offensive Line Masterminds, OL Masterminds, and he works with NFL offensive linemen, college offensive linemen to develop them. They hold summits where they share tips and all sorts of good stuff. Highly respected. And I'm sure he has a relationship with Olu Oluwatimi, but the fact that he's saying that the Seahawks, did he tweet that, Misfit? Yeah, that's crazy high praise. Um, that's exciting. Very good. I know Griff liked Olu Oluwatimi. I only watched one game. Um, there you go. Cool. Very cool. Oh, Papo just went to the Cardinals, and 202 went to the Texans. Seattle clearly didn't want one of these linebackers, so it's what happens, you know. These things happen. But Calvin Avery's still out there. Gerald Clark's still out there. If they want to get a nose, if those guys medically are okay. Yeah, Stefan, that's I you could see that the game I watched. I tweeted out that he was smart. Um, he does understand like stuff. So the fact that he made all the pass run calls in Michigan's offense last season, yeah, that's what you saw on the tape. And centers, you have to be smart. You do. And Whitepler, I'm sure he did stuff like that too. But like Ohio State's offense isn't on the surface. It's not like that. It's not like that Michigan thing. It's just been frustrating how poorly this year's supply of high-end defensive tackles were combined with Seattle's supply of draft picks and needs, says Andrew. I get you, but like what you can't force a class. Like this is what Schneider's been speaking about, John Schneider. There was Carter, who they clearly had off their board due to the character stuff. Because if they had him on their board and they're going best player available, you take Carter. And then, Mazzy Smith is the next guy. And he can't rush the passer, is high. And I liked him a lot. And he may be able to rush the pass, and he has crazy traits. But you can't force a class. And Benton, who's the next one, I thought was awful technique-wise playing the run. Or at least does not fit what Seattle will be coaching or would have coached him. So it's tough, but it is what it is. Best player available, Matty. Clearly, the Seahawks graded this inside linebacker class like the overload crew. Yeah. Hire us, Seattle. Give us a job. Oh, wow. This is a cool stat. So, Equinox on Twitter tells me, looking at the Sports Info Solutions statistical leaderboard, Seattle took the offensive guard and the offensive center. So, Bradford and Olu Oluwatimi, who were each ranked number one at their position in the whole draft in Sports Info Solutions' signature aggregate metric, total points rating per play, which is like a layman's expression. It's like a better version of EPA, for more better for evaluating an individual player. Developed by a guy called Alex Vigderman, I believe. Very smart people over at Sports Info Solutions, SIS. The SIS draft hub is very good, and it's free. So Sports Info Solutions draft hub. But how cool is that? You're analytically driven Seattle Seahawks. Good for them. So good value. Best offensive guard and offensive center in SIS total points rating per play. You'll never sing that. Matty, did you watch Keandre Coburn? Brian, I watched Texas for Ajomo. I just ruled out Coburn just because of the arm length. I know Griff wasn't averse to him. But because Coburn has the small arms, he's always just shooting gaps, and I don't know how that translates really, the way he does it. Brandon Thorne loves Bradford too. Oh my, it's a celebration. It's a celebration. Brandon Thorne, great guy. I was with Brandon Thorne and we worked together on a draft guide, which Inside the Pylon put together. We didn't actually work closely together because he did offensive line, I did DBs, but I know Brandon Thorne and he's a really good guy and top-notch expert in the draft. Like, when it comes to offensive line play, Brandon Thorne is the dude. Like, absolute expert. He has his Trench Warfare newsletter, and he says, Seahawks fans, one of my guys in the draft was Anthony Bradford. He's inexperienced but young with excellent power and a nasty demeanor, aka a classic Seahawks offensive guard. Doesn't that sound nice? And he's posted 10 plays which show how nasty Anthony Bradford is. That is very cool. Yeah, he's just bullying guys. This sounds like a little value. How about this? Seahawks on day 3. Are they doing it again? Does SIS typically transfer to NFL production? Asked Matt Miller. Their total points rating per play is fairly new. I don't know. I'm sure they'd write something about it if it was conducive to NFL success. But like they grade the NFL players with total points rating per play as well. So I don't know how it translates to college. It just means they were playing good in college. Like, why does someone play good in college? Well, there's a variety of reasons that could happen, but it's cool that they've got it for the offensive lineman. Uh, as in Seattle's got that for their offensive lineman. Oh yikes! Coburn has 31.5-inch arms at 330 pounds. Yeah, Brian, that's basically what my reaction was too. Oh, John. Brandon Thorne's pro comparison for Anthony Bradford is Phil Haynes. How about that? Wake Forest, LSU, a few years later. Haynes tested crazy, didn't he, as well? Makes sense. Not as crazy as Bradford, but I think they're having a really good day three. Really good day three. Good vibes. Good vibes. Christopher Smith went. The two big nose tackles are still not drafted. You have to say they've judged it well. They've judged it very well. I don't know who they'd have taken in the third round. Maybe forced one of these inside linebackers in. But instead, in the fourth round, from that little trade down, as well as netting a third round pick next year, they end up with Anthony Bradford, who are really athletic. The people who know what they're talking about, the defensive line, and who have watched him more, they really like him. And then SIS has him first in total points rating per play out of the whole draft class. And then in the other fourth round pick, they go get Cameron Young, who can hit the crap out of people, displaces people, and can play on the inside for them as a nose, as a 3 tech, and can defend the run. I think they're doing well. What are your thoughts on the Charbonnet pick? Who would you have taken instead? This is the question, Rowan. So at 52, I don't know. I actually don't know who you take because they took Derek Hall, they took the outside linebacker. They've already got they already had a wide receiver 3 from the draft. It's about that thing of forcing players into spots they don't belong, isn't it? Like Pickens at 52, I would not have liked. As much as he was a very good tester, no. And then Byron Young is too high. You could have done a safety, but then and then they took a corner at 5. So I don't know. As much as I'd have liked one of these corners at that range, I just don't think that fits Seattle. So they just let the board fall to them. They didn't expect Charbonnet to be there. They said about how Gibbs and Bijan Robinson going top 15 surprised them, and they thought they were surprised that Charbonnet was still available. So while they had Benton possibly sniped from them, they did all right out of it. What names are we looking out for now? Asked Dan Thompson. Calvin Avery, Gerald Clark. But they have more picks than that, don't they? Quarterback wise, who's still available? QB. Okay. What about Malik Cunningham out of Louisville? Kind of mobile, isn't he? He ran a 4.53 40. Max Duggan. Yeah, Ruark. Yeah, that's a really good idea. To do that comparison between Seattle and Chicago. Very interesting. Yeah, let's actually get that up. So Chicago took Darnell Wright at pick 10, which I really like Darnell Wright, and there was talk that he'd go higher. He was the first offensive tackle to be drafted. I like that. Then they got Gervon Dexter at 53. That is bad. I know he tested great, but that is just bad. His tape was not that. Then they took Tyreek Stevenson, which again, athlete. I did not really like him at the Senior Bowl. Technique wise, poor. And then they took Zach Pickens at 64 overall, which felt high. And I think Seattle felt that was high. I think they're taken aback by that. So yeah, interesting comp to Chicago. At this point, they should just roll with Locke. Brian, you're right. And I think they will. Oh yeah, Ojomo's still out there, isn't he? Did Carl Brooks get drafted, who I called Keon Brooks yesterday? The names, they all blur. Ali Gay out of LSU. No, Carl Brooks is still there. He's another kind of like big ends. He's like 3 tech 4i. Did he have short arms though? He may have done. Can't remember. Yeah, Brian, that's a good point as well. Running back is definitely a need, isn't it? I know Charbonnet can pass protect. I know he can. He's good at picking guys up, and I know he can hit people. I also know he can run a variety of rushing concepts from gun, but they could do with another running back. They've got Dallas. They've got Kenneth Walker and then Charbonnet, but they kind of need another one because obviously they lost Homer as well as Penny. Have I watched Ojomo? Yeah. He's more of an outside type, more of outside inside. He's even more outside than Mike Morris was, so they might not think he's a fit. But he was fine. Like at this point, do it. I kind of wanted Owen Papo for Seattle inside linebacker, went to Arizona. Yeah, I get that misfit, but like what's nice again is they had the shot. They could have taken these inside linebackers if they wanted and they didn't. So Brooks has 32 and 3/8 through an inch long arms. Thank you, Scott. Okay, so not massively small, but shorter than they'd like. Oh yeah, Payne Durham did go. I actually thought he could be the kind of guy. Early draft grade for the Hawks. Whispers A. B+, James. B+. Yeah, no, misfit. Absolutely. He had speed. He had some interesting plays as well. Yeah. Ah, well. It wasn't meant to be. All right. I'm going to get water again. See you in a bit. I'll be not long at all. Hello again. Oh, Beal went to the Niners. Oh, that's unfortunate. I liked Robert Beal Jr. Good football players. Lots of good football players. Ah, well. Yeah, John, that's where I'm at. The draft feels identical to last year's. It's just the draft didn't fall in a way that aligned best player available with need. But I feel good about every pick at where they were taken. Yeah. It's like 2022 on the surface, you're like, oh, they took the positions they needed. Well, they needed a lot of positions. I heard that they would have taken Source Gardner, right? And then like the needs just matched up with the best players available. Cross at 9 was so obvious, and like they got positive grades from like the big national people, right? Because they ended up taking like the best players available on a lot of grading stuff. Then Boye Mafe, he was available. He was in the middle of that edge ledge, outside linebacker ledge, and they were able to take him, and they needed that, and it just matched up. It all just synced up really nicely for them last year. This year it hasn't so much, which fine, but they've still addressed their needs by going best player available. So you can argue how much they've done that with interior defensive line. I just think this class is just tough. It's just tough in general. The Giants draft is horrific, says Misfit. Okay. Why? I don't know who they've drafted. I'm so absorbed with the Seahawks. Let me find Cameron Young. Let me find some Cameron Young clips to tweet out. Chat, what food should I order? Thoughts. It is 8:30 here, 8:30 p.m. The Giants draft is horrific. Misfit, you're gonna have to tell me. Not KFC, says James. James, you know what? I was actually thinking. I was actually thinking. Kevin says wings and pizza. Well, yeah, pizzas. You're more likely to get good pizza where I am than you are good wings. Now I'm not in Italy, but yeah. Matty, is it true they don't eat peanut butter and jelly over there? That is true. We eat peanut butter and jam. So do with that what you will. I had a peanut butter and black currant jam yesterday, but it's not as an it's not like we're American. We don't have that every day like you guys. Obviously, you have that every day. What area in London, Matty? West, without doxing myself. I left the J ambiguous for a reason. Yeah, I knew what you're doing. Chinese food. That is a really good shout. Great shout, Kevin. I think I think you win. Um, what am I doing here? Oh yeah, Cameron Young clips. We're gonna see someone strike someone. And tomorrow, chat, I'm coaching the second game of the season for the team that I defensive coordinator of. So this is a football crazy weekend. but I can distract myself from football for a brief few hours on Sunday after we've done our recap podcast with Succession, which will be great. Has to be good Chinese. It does. Well, it definitely wouldn't be American Chinese misfit. That would be difficult. Okay. Any other tweets that I should be aware of? Misfit, you're doing a pretty good job keeping me up to date. The nice thing about Cameron Young at Mississippi State as well is you have like really good opponents. Like we're talking Georgia, Kentucky have a solid offensive line. Like you have stuff. Level of comp. Whereas like a Gerald Clark, for instance, not to pick on him, but Coastal Carolina, that's tough. Yeah, and he was at the Senior Bowl, so swings and roundabouts. Indian food is big in the UK. No, yeah, love a curry. I don't really know my local spots very well, and in terms of getting that delivered, it's in terms of my local spots, that's a bit more challenging as well. I could take a swing though. I could not do best player available. I could reach force a curry into a spot that maybe it doesn't belong. Okay. End of round 5. There's a 6th round as well? Wow. Wow, wow, wow. This is the slog now, isn't it? Okay. As long as the curry is a high character curry. True. Very important. Character of curry. Some Cameron Young plays against Georgia. That's what I'll be tweeting out. Which kind is alpha dog curry? Well, there's like a weird like toxic masculinity thing of ordering a vindaloo as though that makes you an alpha. I think the real alpha dog curry would just be ordering the curry that you want to eat. And if you like vindaloo, then fair enough. Let me get the tracker into the right spot. Green, yellow, or red curry. I've had green most often, but it's more common. I don't even know like. I am not as well versed in like Thai food. I'm not sure. So yeah, I will tweet out these clips of Cameron Young getting some work. Am I seeing this snooker match right now? Is it Ronnie the Rocket? I won't lie to you, I haven't been paying as much attention to the Crucible. Yellow curry is my go-to. Yeah, really? We got the chat. Okay, so tell me why yellow curry's better. I'm not as familiar. Bring back the 12th round draft. Let's go. I would rather not do that. So, what players remaining do you guys actually want to draft? Obviously, you have the say. I can't really get around Ajomo, Avery, maybe Gerald Clark. Like, I think Seattle needs to come out of this with another big guy who can play on the interior, preferably a nose. Because I think as much as they reported Cameron Young as a nose, I think he's more of a 3 tech slash nose or nose slash 3 tech. And he did slim down, I think, for testing, but just like watching. Well, I will share these clips, but I'm trying to multitask or multitask. You prefer the potatoes and overall creaminess of a yellow curry, says Stefan. Mm-hmm. Okay. I like McBride or Rodriguez as second running backs. Yeah, Rodriguez is that he has some passing down kind of traits, right? I remember him at the Senior Bowl. I know nothing but Ojomo or Brooks. Okay. Thanks, James. James, you didn't answer about the snooker. Tell me. I want to be kept up to date. Should we have drafted inside linebacker? Okay. I mean, yeah, you'd think, but they clearly deemed none of these guys worthy of that. Maybe they've got their sights on a guy who's a clear undrafted free agent type, who they just prefer over spending one of these picks. All of these guys went 5th round, sort of 6th round sort of thing. So, sorry, 5th round, 4th round, 3rd round, and they clearly didn't think they were worthy of that high pick. And honestly, from what I watched, I agree with that sentiment. Last year was the year to draft a linebacker. There were so many interesting guys in the middle. James, Ronnie lost the other day. Oh no. Well, that sucks. Selby is up 14-10. Okay, that does sound like a good game. Rodriguez is a great short yardage goal line back. Maybe. Is he big though? Isn't he? I thought he's a smaller one. Which, don't get me wrong. Now they've got Charbonnet in there. They might be open to getting a bit smaller Think about what Homer was coming out. He wasn't the biggest. He just played bigger. I'm making this cut up of Cameron Young still. Against Georgia. So, good opponent. Yeah, Kevin, exactly. I've got to watch the draft, evaluate players, order Chinese food, host a podcast. Busy dude. You're exactly right. It's a tough world out there. Maybe Griff will come soon. He'll lighten the load. I think they grab Amari Burney as an undrafted free agent and make him middle linebacker. Scott in the 503, you've got that knowledge. Oh, Kyle Brooks went to the Packers. Okay. Okay, just go Scott in the 503. What is Amari Burney? Like, what type of player? I didn't think it was that good a draft overall, and I think Seattle's done well to come out of this with wide receiver 1, cornerback 1, running back 2 or 3, right? That's what best player available style that gets you, doesn't it? Because Jahmyr Gibbs, for all of his explosive traits, is more like a offensive weapon, isn't he? Especially if you're going to justify where the Lions end up picking him. He's not like a scheme versatile inside the tackled running back in theory. He's more like get the ball out to him in space. You've got to use him more as a receiving option. I know there's Alvin Kamara stuff out there about him, but yeah. And then Derek Hall was like, in their eyes, was top of the. Oh my word! Look who it is, Griffin. Are you ready? Nod if you're ready. Oh ho ho ho! Let's go, ladies and gentlemen. Seem like spin move.
I really like the Morris pick. That's cool, man. I liked him. Now, what's funny though is that I liked him as an edge rusher.
That's
I mean, if he was really 6'6", 290 moving like that, I don't care what his combine is. Like he's really coordinated and really smooth, can string together moves. The weird thing though is they're talking about him as an interior player, and I don't think he's an interior player. I don't think that's his game at all. So it's really weird to me.
well, Griff. It's because they're running 3-4 fronts, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think. I mean, to me, a 3-4 end is still a defensive tackle. Like
Yeah, no,
they're
it is exactly. But maybe, Griff. My cope is that they're actually going to play under with him a bit as well.
yeah, and like last year, under was about anywhere between like 5 and 10 snaps a game,
Yeah.
probably. So, and he's a fifth round pick or whatever he is. So it's not you're not changing your whole thing for a fifth round pick, but you can fit him in like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, that means, I mean, to me, he's not a early down 3 technique 4 eye unless they can project that. See, I'm also skeptical that he was actually all of 290 pounds in college. He might have been at one point, but like what we do know that he's a true 295 now. So maybe he is a little bit bigger than he was in college. Um, and with the height and length, maybe they think they can coach him up to the technique, but he probably had good reps rushing guards from the inside that I wasn't really looking for because I was watching Mozzie Smith and he just kept making plays and showing up. So if he if he can we go back and watch his tape more thoroughly and we see that where he really factors in on the inside, then one, like if he doesn't become a good run defender on the interior, that's fine because you can trot him out on pass downs, right? on the inside. But if he can, then you get that interior pass rush on early downs as well, because his run defense merits playing him on early downs. So it's exciting. But I mean, he doesn't seem like on paper, he's not a 3-4 defensive end. It's a projection with him. And like they made the projection with LJ Collier. Like, Collier was an edge in college. He was 280 pounds, but he was an edge.
Yep.
And now obviously he didn't work out, but in 2020 he was a serviceable run defender playing a 3-4 end in 2020. He was a B gap player in 2020, and he was serviceable. So, if you can make it work with Collier, theoretically you can make it work with Mike Morris, right? Because I think Morris is a better college player and prospect than LJ Collier was. So but this is not like an easy fit. They're gonna have to make it work. And if he doesn't work, that's fine, because we go back to the 2-4-5 stuff, because even though it's technically an outside linebacker, they're not dropping him in the 2-4-5. So he raises the floor a little bit of the run defense just by virtue of being 290. You can actually rush the edge and help defend the run from that front as well, to improve that, kind of like the same theory with Keon White.
Yeah, and are they planning also to run like the 40 front, the 6-2 reduced over, I forget what Fangio calls it, but
Tilt?
what's it?
Yeah,
That sort of thing, where they have 4 big defensive line. He could then play outside, like reduce down a bit.
for sure. Also, he's more comfortable rushing from a 2-point stance than a 3-point stance on the edge.
Yeah, you've said very similar things to me, and I did remember that you had really liked him.
Yeah, and he felt like a 3rd, 4th rounder, right? So to get him in the 5th is pretty neat. But yeah, it's cool.
I couldn't believe he was 290 either. Like, because the way, I can't exactly remember the way it's been reported, but I was like, oh, well, he was like, he looked better outside. He looked pretty fluid for his size and height. But the fact that he said he's played at 290, like, I just didn't see that. Testament really to the way he was moving, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, he is 6'6", but I think that's classic, college programs fudging their numbers.
It's not real.
Yeah. Like, I want to look at a picture of him at the combine. I mean, he looks fairly similar to some of the pictures in his see, the other thing is he plays with good leverage, but he is naturally high-hipped.
Right.
So like he gets underneath guys, but not because he's sinking, but just because the hand placement, and he rushes with good knee bend.
Yeah, I liked his knee bend.
So yeah, like, he's not gonna get into a sumo squat and extend his hips and get completely underneath a guy, but he plays with good functional leverage, even though he's playing high. Kind of like even though totally different players, like Logan Hall last year, people talked about his pad level, but it's just because the dude is 6'7", like, that's it's because he's tall, but he plays with good leverage. So
that's the other factor, though, to playing him inside, which is just going to be tough. Like, the fact he is that tall.
Right. So what did you think of the Cam Young pick? I'm sure you talked about it to death already, but
I'm just making a cut up. I think it's I have talked about it to death, but like, it is the it's he had some of the best striking technique and playing on a guard. Like, he's more of a power stepper, one gap guy, just get knocked back the way they used to kind of play until last year. To me, it signifies less gap and a half stuff. Like, bare front, they're not going to play with 2-4 techs.
Yeah, 2-3 Ts, and then maybe one 4-eye if they form a wing or a tight end or something, or like they're expecting a bunch of gap scheme or something. Yeah, and like he just seems like a quality, early down 500 snap player is going to give you good run defense, like a Taba Rubin, Tony McDaniel.
That's exactly he's that. Those are the names I mean, guys. When I was saying about how he's like a plug and play sort of dude. It's that sort of player.
Yeah, and so it kind of gives you the same ability that they had last year, but on a rookie contract. So
In theory, yeah.
and yeah, theoretically, like that's
His
the
problem is
attempt.
his technique's pretty good. Like it stood out to me compared to some of these other dudes. But
Hmm.
striking, he gets his outside pad a bit involved, but it was better than a lot of guys. Like I preferred his technique against the run than I did Benton.
Yeah, and I saw the same thing. Um,
And Pickens, but
uh,
obviously Pickens had the athleticism. But like
yeah,
Cameron Young's not unathletic. And the level of comp thing is nice. The fact that he's
yeah,
played like
that's true.
I'm this cut up's against Georgia, like
Yeah.
so again he should be ready to come in. And I heard that they were interested in him in the pre draft.
Hmm. Um, yeah, good stuff.
And
Oluwatimi, go ahead.
yeah, Griff, they took Olu Oluwatimi, who was like your favorite guy after. Well, he's like you liked him, right?
Yeah, so after like the big three, you could say he was definitely my fourth favorite center. He's not gonna one-on-one blocking. He's not gonna block anybody. Like but he's really good in combos, like doing what the center needs to do. And then he has the reputation of being a guy that's really good with communication, and he's decent in pass protection. He's quick-footed and all that stuff. He definitely kind of was one of those guys where you had to look up the number at the Senior Bowl because you're like, okay, who's 55? He's playing pretty well, stuff like that. And the other guy I liked was Jake Andrews, and he went before Oluwatimi, didn't he?
Yeah, just I think, yeah.
Yeah, so it's cool that it was those two guys that ended up going. So I like it. It's a good hedge against Evan Brown and good competition. So
Nice.
whoever ends up getting the starting center job will have, earned it. It won't be a shoe-in, right? Um,
Yeah.
and then the other thing is Evan Brown, he signed a 2-year deal.
No, I think it's
It was a
1
one
year.
year.
Yeah.
So, even if whatever happens, if say Evan Brown plays really well, where like you might have to pay him $8 million a year to keep him because
Mhm.
who knows what goes on, and you don't really want to shell out the cash at the center position for that, then you have Oluwatimi right there. So it gives them good flexibility. So a good pick at that point in the draft.
There we go. Look at this chat. Griff coming in sharing the knowledge.
And then
I
Bradford's
hadn't heard
cool.
of him.
I had and I think he was probably the strength of a really bad LSU offensive line. Um, so he was definitely the best player on the line, I think. Um,
Good.
he's really so you totally see the right tackle background because they moved him to guard this past year.
Right.
He's really consistent footwork when he's setting. The
Mhm.
problem though is that the games that I've seen of him, he's playing up against other like odd front teams, tight front teams. So I really want to see if his Clemson games, if he's played Clemson, I'm sure he has,
Mm.
because you get the consistent angles from the pass rushers that you'll see in the NFL to really know like how does he consistently set to a 3 technique who isn't slanting as much, who's truly rushing the B gap, and you don't have tackle help because there's an edge outside of him. Whereas, like in a tight front or mid front, sometimes the edge of the defense is the 4-eye, right? So it's like it's hard to evaluate guards and pass protection because they're not like real reps for either side of the line of scrimmage. So but he seems really consistent, and then he's really explosive run blocking. He can get a little high at times, can kind of lose his balance against guys that have really good like blocking control, like with like rotational power. He can get a little too high, I think,
Mhm.
against those guys, but he has good initial knockback. And then his combine was really good, and he's young, and so they have a right guard right now, Phil Haynes. He's probably not going to supplant Haynes right now, but I like their general roster building at O-line because this is what the Packers do. They draft a decent player on the third, fourth, or fifth round, and like almost every year. And then those guys, like their current starters, they drafted like 2-3 years ago, and their first year starting is like in their second, third, or fourth year. Like that's what they do. They develop them. So this is what they're doing right now. Like they have like the de facto starting line right now. Cross, Lewis, Evan Brown, Phil Haynes, and then Lucas. And then, I mean, if they win the competition, great, but they don't have to start right now. Oluwatimi and Bradford can be the guy next year or the year after. And hopefully by then, like, they're young, so you're not getting them at 26 when they're getting their first real NFL experience. They might be 23, 24. And like Damian Lewis had his breakout year last year at his age 25 season.
Did you see that?
So
Did you see also when we talk about these guys, SIS had Oluwatimi as and Bradford as the number one players in total points rating per play
yeah,
for
that is
their
interesting.
positions. And it's also cool that Brandon Thorne really liked Bradford, and he comped him to Phil Haynes.
Yeah, that is ironic, isn't it?
And then Duke Manyweather really liked Oluwatimi and said he's the future center, the starter.
Yeah.
So there's like notable names liking these guys. That's a good comparison to the Packers, actually, Griff.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe how athletic Bradford was. Like the testing is crazy.
Right. Really explosive.
And I was saying that they've done well actually to wait. Like they've got all the guys, like some interesting guys, at this point. Like if they'd done this in the third round, it would have felt forced. But they've got size, they've got testing, and they've got like actual play and level of comp, and they haven't forced it in the third round.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can't really hate it. Griff, how would you grade each of the moves?
I think Morris is a solid B.
Yeah.
Cam Young is what they needed him to be right there. So probably a B given that context.
Yeah.
Bradford is honestly Bradford's a B too. And all of a team feels like a B. They all feel just like, okay,
Yeah.
dang, that's what you want them to be. There's not like some weird funky thing where some guy we've never heard of before. I mean, there's also the idea that they were the best available too. Bradford is probably one of the 3 best guards remaining. Oluwatimi was probably the best center remaining. Cam Young of his class of player,
Of
early
his
down
ilk.
rotational player, yeah, he's probably the best guy. Do you think that they end up drafting a nose tackle, or do you think they wait for after the draft ends?
Hmm. I think they would do, because it becomes a case of beating free agency. Like I'd be surprised if they don't take Avery or
Yeah,
Gerald Clark. Get your pick of the guys, because they're all just lasting. I also wonder how much if there's like a medical thing going on.
sure.
The other picks we theorized in the chat were potentially getting another running back, and then an inside linebacker. But they clearly don't like the inside linebackers. They've stayed well away from that at every point in the draft.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
I agree.
but yep, Skinner's gone. He didn't really feel like a fit for Seattle anyway.
Yeah, he wasn't.
Griff, the chat discussion that perhaps you could weigh in on.
Yeah.
Yellow curry, red curry, or green curry?
I think green curry has the most interesting flavor, but red curry is like the classic. You can't go wrong with red curry. But I'm gonna go red curry.
Chat was big time yellow curry fans.
Really? Now,
Yeah.
yellow curry is a little sweeter on average, isn't it?
They were saying about creaminess. So do with that what you want.
Yeah. Oh, they're all really creamy to me though, but
Yeah. Coconut milky.
yeah. God, I want curry now. Thanks,
Yeah,
chat.
I'm gonna order food.
I did something really depraved once, and I ordered a bunch of red curry, and then I also ordered ribs.
That's
So I
not
was eating
depraved.
ribs and curry at the same time.
From the same
Goes
spot?
together. No, two
Yeah,
two different.
that's a bit, yeah, that's a bit depraved.
It's a free country though. Like, who's gonna stop me?
The authorities.
So Mike Morris, Curtis Crabtree just tweeted out a quote from Mike Morris when they took Olu Oluwatimi. He said, "Oh my God, I was so happy. I totally disregarded everything that was going on with me. Olu is one of the best offensive linemen I've ever gone up against at the college level." So that's high praise. Now, of course, he's going to talk up his former teammate. Why wouldn't he? But he went out of his way to say one of the best I've ever gone up against, as opposed to just saying, great guy, works really hard. He's a good player. He went like he's legit one of the best I've ever, you know what I mean? So that's pretty cool.
That is high praise. High praise
Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah. Parker Washington just went at 185.
Yeah.
That's surprising that he lasted that long, honestly.
Is I know he's small, but
I also thought the Seahawks might have. Well, I mean, he's totally redundant with Smith and Jigba, though, at that point.
guys, I just tweeted out my Cameron Young cut up against Georgia. If you want to get an idea of like his sort of type of player. There's nothing spectacular, just and not that too many reps, but
if
yeah.
if they were still the 4-3, he would definitely be more like a Taba Rubin in that he could legit be the one technique or legitimately be the three technique. Like he's really just kind of a, I can play where you need me type thing.
Yeah,
So
that's where I'm at with it as well.
So just, a classic 300 pounder with length and good technique that gives you what you need. And he's not huge, so I don't think he's like ideal as a pure zero technique, but
No,
he can
because
he can make it work if they need, to rotate, right?
they reported it as a nose tackle, but I don't think like that. I think he just plays anywhere on the interior against the run.
Yeah.
Fits in where they need.
Yeah.
Um,
the proverbial yeah, so James Bonkin has Boncan, apologies if I mispronounced your last name, has just backed me up. Yellow curry, almonds and coconut korma, very sweet. So it is on the sweeter side. Also, isn't pineapple often featured in yellow curry?
oh no, really?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I had a red curry the other week or a couple of weeks ago with duck in it, roast duck. That was amazing.
I bet it was
Amazing.
amazing, bloody amazing.
Yeah, Ojimo's still out there.
Dun 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 dun. Ojimo, good player at this stage.
So I was thinking Thai yellow curry when I was speaking curry. I was thinking Thai.
Yeah.
So the different, there is obviously worth specifying the different
No,
cuisine.
I think chat knew that. I think
All
James may have
amazing
been
though.
comparing the cultures.
True.
I could have pork lungs in chili sauce, thinly sliced beef and offal. Probably not today. Chat, where are we at with awful? We got any awful people? The awful contingent? Why do you think Whitebler has dropped? James, because he's small and short-armed, and Ohio State's offense probably didn't ask as much as the centers. Could be wrong. And then maybe there's a medical thing. There could be a medical thing. It is slightly odd. But he got pushed up to like an odd level, I'd say.
So the Patriots went Boutte. That's funny. Someone had to take him.
Is it funny?
I'm over here laughing. Maddie, who is your not who you think is the most important or will be the most impactful per se? Who is your favorite pick that they've made so far of the entire draft? Like who's your guilty pleasure, or just who's just your favorite guy that they've taken?
That's tough. Smith and Jigba?
Yeah. He's the most,
just what it symbolizes for the offense and like the value. I think that has the potential to have the immediate impact.
agreed. He's the most superficially fun pick. I also like though the symbolism behind taking Witherspoon though, because like they are just fine with, yeah, they got a guy who is on his way toward being an elite corner in Tariq Woolen, but they're totally fine with running out Mike Jackson or an equivalent player year after year, right? And like provided that the rest of their defense has talent, you can be really good with a guy like Mike Jackson playing left corner, right? But the fact that they went and just said, hey, we want 2 Tariq Woolens, not stylistically, but impact, is cool. That they just said, let's turn something that is good with some potential into something that is great just in the blink of an eye. So I think that's really cool. But yeah, my answer still would be JSN, just because, like they're being gluttonous at the pass catching position, and that's really cool.
Gluttony. You love a bit gluttony. Yeah, it's not like it's not necessarily the draft where, I mean, I'm a sucker for defensive players, so and Witherspoon's cool, but it's just it's not his fault at all. It's just painful about Carter and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go get some food, Griff.
Okay.
Have you got your latest material ready?
No, we're putting a pause on that.
A pause, really?
Yeah.
I think people were into it.
Oh no, they loved it. They thought the jokes were hilarious, but I just, I'm not your puppet to just.
You're not
perform.
performing person.
Yeah, I'm not on call. I do it when the mood strikes,
Okay. Well, good luck, Griff. I'll be back in a sec.
Bradford had a pretty decent game against Alabama this past year. And again, it's the punts that they run. It's kind of hard to evaluate the guards because they don't get a lot of routine, like 3 technique rushing the B gap, snap after snap. It's hard to get a feel for how they really do in protection. But again, the right tackle, the tackle background shows up because he's really consistent with his feet, keeping his post foot, his inside foot horizontal when he's setting to the guard or setting to the defensive tackle. So he's able to kind of cover set them, whereas like tackles want to set kind of, they don't want to completely cover the guy because they don't want to give up the inside. Guards can do that because there's less space. But he can go out and cover the guard, kind of square up with them while still keeping his shoulders and hips square to the line of scrimmage. And like that's just like a technical foundation that combined with his athleticism is just a really good sign, because then what's left there to be really polished is your handwork. And that's something he can get. But like before you worry about hands, feet matter more. So the natural anchor and the feet are pretty solid from a technical standpoint. And then theoretically, with some development, the hands could get there. So I think that's just, it's a good pick, especially in the 4th round. Like, not likely to find a guy that is particularly better, you know, in the 4th round. So chat, who did you, who, is there anyone left that you guys want? Any names? Yeah, Morrow. That's definitely someone worth looking at. He's like a 5th-year player, but he's still young. He's not like 25. I think he's 21 or 22. Jared Clark, yeah, I wouldn't mess around with undrafted free agency. If there's a nose tackle they think that can give them snaps, I wouldn't hesitate. The other thing, though, I hope they consider is taking a safety. I would take a safety. I think Jamie Robinson is still out there. Has Christopher Smith been taken? I was out, so I actually haven't paid attention to the other team's picks. But Christopher Smith had a horrible combine, but he has functional range and he knows how to play. He can cover ground. He's a cerebral safety. I think he could play single high despite the speed, and he could play 2 high just fine. He likes to come downhill quick. He's not a great tackler, though. Jamie's off. Okay, that's too bad. It was always a rough safety class. Like, you're kind of looking at the guys that kind of have like Bradley McDougald-esque futures. So quality players, right? Maybe, you know, I mean, McDougald at his best was probably a Pro Bowl caliber player. Oh, Christopher Smith went to the Raiders. That makes sense. Robert Beal went to the 49ers. Of course he did. Kuntz. So Saldiveri went to the Saints, listed as a tackle, but he played center and guard at the Senior Bowl. I liked him as a center option, but I liked Andrews and Oluwatimi more.
Yeah, Robinson went, Griff. You
Yeah.
may have seen that, though. Yeah.
Yeah, Maddie, while you were gone, we were discussing who our favorite Seattle Overload host was, and the most common answer was me.
All right. That's interesting, though, because, like, I don't see
No,
it
it
in the
was
chat.
me. No,
Did
it
you
was
delete
me.
the comments or something?
There's like an alternative chat where we discuss more sensitive topics.
The private chat. There's Whiteler going.
So Weipler was what, the 5th or 6th center taken?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I mean, really, the play strength is not there, straight up. Like it just isn't. But he's young though. A lot of these other centers are like 24 years old, so he might just need some years to develop. But Green Bay took Carl Brooks.
Avery's still there.
Can't forget about Robert Cooper though, but he feels like a
Yeah.
like an UDFA.
Has Diabate been taken? That's a good question. Which player has dropped the most for you, surprisingly?
Well, probably Weipler, but not anymore, obviously. And then Ojimo and Parker Washington are the names that stand out to me. But you though, Mehdi?
I'm sorry, I'm just getting a call. Yeah, Whitepla's slightly surprising. Torrance, because we just didn't know that he had a thing.
Right.
Or maybe we did, but I didn't know that.
Coburn, yep, Coburn's still on there.
I'm not getting drafted, Dan. It's not my moment yet.
I need you to play Fortech, dude.
That's like one of the that's one of the positions I'd least like to play. You just have to play like really straight into a tackle. No.
Yeah, it sucks. And then the angles aren't good for pass rush.
Yeah, it's just boring. You just
It's truly grunt work, unglamorous grunt work. Which player rose the most? I mean, really, probably Derek Hall. But he might have. A lot of teams might have had him higher, though.
Sounded like it. Zach Evans seems like value,
especially with the combine. Yeah. DJ Turner, was that a surprise at 60?
DJ Turner,
the corner
on the decks. I thought he'd go higher, given how he tested.
Mm-hmm. Is Cropper gone, the Fresno State guy?
I don't know.
He's a receiver that I think fits them.
That's some nice value for the Rams. Travis Hodges Tomlinson, baller. Just tiny.
Mm-hmm. Jalen Moreno Cropper.
How much longer do you think's left of the draft? 30 minutes? An hour?
Probably, yeah.
Ojimo and Sean Tucker, please. Tell us about Sean Tucker, Dan. I'm negotiating right now. Negotiating food. Joey Fisher available? I don't think he is. I thought he got drafted.
No. Oh, Joey Fisher.
Am I confusing him with the other shepherd? I think it might be. Because the quarterback went, didn't he? Which teams improved the most over the last 2 to 3 days? The Colts, maybe. Yeah, everyone's saying the Colts had a great draft, aren't they?
Yeah. Eagles too.
Eagles, yeah. Eagles. Somehow. Bryce Ford Wheaton's still there? True. When a guy is still available and tests that good, and you don't think they have a medical thing, it tells you quite a lot about how their tape was.
Yeah. Or maybe how the interview process went. He is supposedly a very, very self-confident guy, which
Self-confident.
can be a double-edged sword, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's crucial, but at the same time, maybe it can throw teams off. I don't know. I'd be speculating.
I didn't know you had this insight.
Yeah. That was volunteered to me by someone who knows stuff. And that surprised me. I thought I told you that.
Probably. It's been a long.
Yeah, there's been a lot of yeah. Is Eli Ricks still out there?
He might be. His agility was so bad,
Yeah.
and he's pretty grabby. But I probably wouldn't have drafted him. I'd have drafted Ringer though. I don't understand. Like people were saying that there's problems flipping the hips and like stuff at the top of the root and stuff. But
Was it just the Tennessee game that gave people pause with him? I feel like
I think there's a bit more. New comment.
A.T. Perry is still out there. That is insane. What happened there, man?
So Seattle, did you see the Derek Hall? Have you heard about his story? It's actually crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
So for those of you who don't know, Derek Hall was born 4 months premature and was not breathing. And his mum said at the time that he was actually born dead. He was so small he could fit in her hand, and he was on life support for a week, had bleeding in his brain, had severe asthma, was hospitalized for weeks at a time, and he still actually has smaller lungs than expected for someone his age, but no longer relies on a rescue inhaler, which is just unbelievable. And he's from Jackson, Mississippi, right? And he used that money from the NIL stuff to help with Jackson, Mississippi. They had really bad flooding there, didn't they? Was it flooding?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, good guy. You know who else is from Jackson, Mississippi?
Who?
James Earl Jones, Oprah Winfrey, and Morgan Freeman.
Very nice. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Very cool. Oh, Chris Rodriguez drafted. There you go. Sorry, Brian. I know you're hoping. Derek Hall pulling up to the Senior Bowl in a monster truck is baller.
The
Yeah.
Saints just traded Adam Troutman to the Broncos, tight end. Gotta say, the Broncos have been making peculiar moves recently.
Are you sure it's Troutman and not Taysom Hill?
It makes sense that they're dealing with the Saints, though.
That that Broncos trade yesterday, like it was just me and I was a bit tired. And at first it said in the chat, people said it was a 2024 fourth round pick. So I was like, okay, that's a bit steep. Why did they give up a third round pick? What are they doing? Like, what are they doing? And didn't they draft was it for Drew Sanders? They must have really liked him.
Interesting.
But that's not how you should operate. I just don't understand.
Yeah. Coburn went to Kansas City.
Cool.
See their eventual Derek Nottie replacement.
Misfit wants to hear me say baller a few more times. Baller, baller, baller. There you go.
Baller.
No, not you, me, Drift.
Say it with an American accent. Say baller.
Baller.
Dance for me. Dance for me, Maddie.
Later. Okay. On the clock. The New Orleans Saints. It's for Riley Moss. Oh. That's rather amusing, isn't it? Especially when there was some intriguing corners just lasting.
Interesting.
Hey guys, please like the video if you haven't already, and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe. This is also a podcast. Check out the podcast. Search for @Seattle Overload, and yeah, we appreciate you spending day 3 with us. Even though I slept in, missed the first 2 picks basically, but we don't need to talk about that. It's fine. It's fine.
I wasn't even here at all for any of it, so.
Yeah, as far as you're concerned.
So Jared Clark did meet with every single team at the Senior Bowl.
He did?
Yeah, every single team.
Sounds like an undrafted free agent then.
Yeah.
Hustle Chilson, what's up? Smashing that subscribe button now. Thank you, Hustle.
Nice.
Good to see you in here. Guys, look, we're so close now. Can almost taste it. Who do you want the pick to be? Chat, Griffin.
Go Moreno Cropper, man.
I've never heard you speak about this person before.
It's fun.
What about Joey Fisher? Isn't he your guy?
Yeah, but they're set on the interior right now.
Are they?
Yeah.
They could do with like a left guard, right?
I guess because Lewis will be a free agent soon.
Yeah. They don't have a backup on the roster, do they?
They really don't.
I forget Jake Kerhan is able to come inside, but he's more of a right guard.
Mm-hmm.
I sounded East Coast. Oh, thank you, Brian. Well, there you go.
I think Cropper can run routes. He's pretty light, I think. He seems to fit them. Similar enough to the theory behind Bo Melton. Obviously, that didn't work out, but I feel like they should just take small swings at receiver every year this late.
Soft swings.
Soft swings.
Lonnie Phelps is out of Kansas, ran a 4.55 40 outside linebacker. Just thinking special teams. Dwayne
Yeah.
McBride, still not drafted.
Also, on that note, I suspect Marino Cropper would be a good special teamer too
Okay.
in coverage.
I did not know you'd watched him. I've never heard of him.
It was him, Xavier Hutchinson. There's one other guy that
Oh, yeah, I now remember. Yeah,
like, just kind of like very at the very bottom of guys
that
that seem
group.
viable.
Yeah. I don't think Bryce Ford Wheaton's going to be a thing, but we'll see. This is the type of range I'd take a bet on. It's just an athletic wow, isn't it? Anthony Johnson, bit of a slot with high testing. What about Ali Gay out of LSU, Griff?
They visited with him, didn't they?
Yeah, he's long, but he was very light. He was 263 pounds, so which isn't very light, but like I think in Seattle they'd want him to be heavier, so I guess.
A.T. Perry went to the Saints.
That makes sense. Is that the Taysom Hill replacement? What did the Broncos give for Troutman?
I don't even know.
The Seahawks are on the clock. Guys, let's gear up. It's our moment. I'm sure they'll go to a commercial break, won't they? They've been doing that quite a lot. The Bucks took Jose Ramirez.
They kind of glad because I didn't want Seahawks to take him. Did Brenton Cox go yet?
I think so. I could be wrong.
I wouldn't mind that this late. Like, might as well.
Lots of people have been drafted.
That's true.
Ojimo. Make it Ojimo. MJ Anderson, maybe? He's a long, tall, younger guy out of Iowa State. He had some plays opposite Will McDonald.
Did he? Interesting.
No spoiling the picks, chat. Spoil the picks, banned. Insta ban. The usual spoilers haven't been here, Griff.
On now.
Who did Kunst go to?
I don't think he's gone yet, has he?
At what point did they just say, damn it, we're just going to draft athletes?
Right.
Kuntz is available. Oh, James with a sad face. No spoiling the picks. You'll be banned. Oh, is it a long snapper?
Okay. Well, I'm glad that they took this position that they took. Did we say
it? Yeah, fine.
Jarek Reed, safety, New Mexico. He's a name that I know, but I know nothing about him.
He visited. He visited with him. I'm pretty sure.
He ran a 4.46, 5'10", 200.
Yeah, top 30 draft visit with Seattle.
Good jumps. I think a decent shuttle, an average 3-cone, perhaps below average. Beyond that, I don't know anything about him.
Time to
He
find a
feels
New
like
Mexico film. More of an
he f-
undrafted free agent type, you'd have thought.
yeah, he feels like a shell player just based off of as in, not a box safety. I don't think I mean, maybe he can be like a, Ugo Amadi brand of nickel, but he feels like a quarter safety or a cover 2 safety.
Yeah,
Um,
when you say shell, that's what you mean, right?
yeah, probably not a deep third safety. Well, maybe with the speed, but I don't know about the 3-cone. But of course, footwork and smarts matters so much to do that. Like bad athletes have been good deep third safeties before. But
He tested very well.
yeah.
38-inch vert. 7.16 second 3-cone's not bad either.
Is it? I thought that'd be below average, but maybe I'm wrong.
Fine, I think.
Okay.
The short shuttle's not great.
4-3-1.
Mm. Yeah. Finding New Mexico film is going to be fun. Yeah, he looks more like a quarters sort of dude, right?
Mm-hmm. So they don't pick again until 237? And then is that it?
That's it.
All right, then.
They're drafting.
They are drafting.
Yeah, 5'10", 196. But like realistically, they have guys. The safeties now are guys who can play a bit of slot and box and high, and then guys who can play a bit of slot and high.
Mm-hmm. So maybe he's closer to that.
Yeah, it sounds more like the latter, doesn't it? He's from the same town in Mississippi as KJ Wright. Good for him.
All right.
Yeah, Scott in the 503 in the chat. You did get that. You said, watch out for Derek Reed the second.
There you go.
Top 30 visit. Yeah, so Seattle next picks in a while. They next pick round 7.
How many minutes is it between each pick? 3?
Yeah. Round 7, pick 237. And we're currently on what pick?
On 202, I think.
Okay.
So I think we're about an hour away from it.
You think?
Yeah. If there's 3 minutes.
You know what that makes me think?
What?
Makes me think we should do our grades and get out of here.
I like it.
Chat, it's a slog. I don't know if we can talk much more. But what I would say is, I would say that they addressed their positions that they needed to today.
Yeah.
And they got pretty good value considering. And they've exited the draft with a slightly backwards way of like you may have thought they'd have flipped the order that they've done this in, but they've just got the best player available at each spot. I don't think it sucks too bad. I think it's pretty good. I think it's a B plus the whole draft. Griff?
I agree. They've absolutely improved, not in the areas that we maybe thought they would, but this still makes them better. They didn't draft like redundancy. They still added to what they could have added to, like clear upgrades in some areas. Some picks are just kind of like prudent depth picks, and then it's obvious that they're just going to find their regular run stuffers that they always do and get cheaper and bank on the development of their incumbent edges as well as Derek Hall, and bank on Draymond Jones to give them the interior rush from one guy. So, Stefan made a good point. If I pronounced your name wrong, I apologize. That Reed primarily played slot for New Mexico this past season. So that's interesting. And then competition for Kobe. I mean, that depends on what kind of slot he was. Was he kind of a matchup slot like Kobe is, where even if they're not playing a bunch of cover one, he's playing outside leverage match cover three, carrying seams? Or is he more of a inside match, kind of more spot dropping type of stuff, more safety oriented stuff like Ugo Amadi or Julian Love when he's played safety, or like the Jamal Adams brand? So that's kind of what it comes down to. So we'll have to watch and see what kind of slot he is.
Well, and there's also crossover between the things. Like obviously Diggs played the slot, then moved to free safety in a cover three. There's real crossover in those positions.
Mm-hmm.
It will be interesting to see where they start him off and what they say about him.
For sure.
And I wonder if he has any special teams experience as well.
For sure.
So what grade would you give Griff?
For the whole draft?
Yeah.
I give it a B plus.
B plus. And Griff, are you available to record tomorrow?
Maybe.
Okay, so maybe guys, we'll be back tomorrow with a dust to settled recap. If not, we'll try and do Monday for a live recording of Seahawks review, factoring in what they say in the press conferences. That is Pete Carroll and John Schneider, factoring in what we sort of learn, and also undrafted free agency is about to kick off, isn't it?
That's true. That's true.
Be interesting if they don't take a Calvin Avery or a Moro Ojimo or a he might be a medical case at this point, or a Gerald Clark. Then maybe those guys land in free agency with Seattle. I'd expect them to also add a long snapper at some point. They currently don't have one. So,
right.
Thank you everyone so much for joining us over the draft weekend. Really liked doing it. And it's fun having the chat engage. First time we've really done a live stream for this long. And I think it's gone pretty well. I've enjoyed it a lot. Thanks for the kind words in the comments as well. That's very nice. Please do like the video, 5-star review. Follow at Seattle Overload. Follow Griffin at C Mike Spinmove. Follow Ty at Dane Gunzelers. Follow me at Matty F. Brown. Check out my Seahawks on Tape Substack, where I wrote about how Seattle is doing best player available over need and how that played out in the first round. I'll have tape breakdowns of guys, and I'm sure Griff will be posting his tape thoughts and videos and stuff as well. And we'll have our review podcast coming out soon. But until then, the Seahawks drafted. We covered the draft. We've missed 3 picks in total, although we've sort of been there for it. So thank you so much. And yeah, we appreciate you. Goodbye.